ASD level 1 is this condition where the individual is low in social and emotional intelligence, even though they're very high in general IQ and logical intelligence. Now, the problem with that is, as soon as the individual on the autism spectrum is anxious, they regress to an emotional age more like an older child or a preteen. So there's age regression in ASD that's all related to anxiety. If the individual's not anxious, they're calm, they're, for example, engaged in their special interest and occupying themselves and in a good state of mind, their emotional age matches their chronological age. When they are anxious, there's age regression, and that's when you see meltdowns, shutdowns, adult temper tantrums, and a severe lack of cooperation. So those of you who are watching this video that have ASD level 1, you reduce your anxiety, you reduce your age regression, and all the problems that come with that. One of the traits of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. Now, this involves the ability to control and manage your emotions, impulses, and reactions, especially in challenging or stressful situations, which probably includes your neurodiverse marriage. Now, people with strong self-regulation skills are less likely to act impulsively and are better equipped to handle conflict. So if you're a little low in the emotional intelligence department, I have a little link right there that'll take you to another video. You'll definitely want to check that out. Quick message to neurotypical spouses out there. There's two kinds of people in the world. There's people, and then there's project people. Let's use the example of the neurotypical wife and the ASD husband. You, as an NT wife, you're more interested in people than projects. You have your projects, you have some interest there, but your primary thing is people, connection, social and emotional nuances involved there, right? Your ASD husband is not a people person, he's a project person. In other words, he's more interested in projects than socializing or talking about feelings, etc. So, again, there's people, there's project people. You're a people person, he's a project person, and so that's why you get some of the disconnection and lack of emotional reciprocity and so on, because he's more interested in his project than talking about feelings or engaging in social activities. Doesn't mean he doesn't love you or care about you. Hey, ASD spouse alert. While you're at work today, think about something that you really appreciate in your NT wife. Write it down, okay? And then when you get home tonight, sometime this evening, during dinner or after dinner, mention it to her. Say, hey, I just want to let you know I really appreciate when you okay? When you fill in a blank with something that you really appreciate, okay? So, what are you going to do again? You're going to think about something you appreciate in your NT wife. You're going to write it down. And you're going to mention it later this evening. Okay? Right? Get it done. Message to neurotypical wives. Have you noticed that your autistic husband finds talking about relationship problems as unbearable? Hence, he shuts down or melts down. It's because his self-esteem is in the toilet. And so whenever you try to engage in some conflict resolution or problem solving or want to talk about some issues, he downloads that as an attack on his self-esteem. This is because he has a hard time understanding your perspective. He has a hard time understanding your feelings. And even though your message has good intentions, he views that as you being parental, critical, demeaning. He feels ridiculed, he feels blamed and shamed. Hey, quick message to autistic husbands out there. The next time your NT wife offers you an opinion about something, instead of going, oh, well, that's a dumb opinion, or that's illogical, that doesn't make sense, and then you offer your opinion about her opinion, how about let's do this instead? Okay, honey, I respect the fact that that's your opinion. It's not necessarily my opinion, but I'm not here to offer my opinion. I'm here to understand your opinion. Do I need to repeat that again? Okay, here it is again then. Okay, I respect the fact that that's your opinion. It's not necessarily my opinion, but I'm not here to defend myself or to offer my opinion about your opinion. I'm here to understand your opinion. Are you listening? Is this thing even working? Hello? If you're married to someone on the autism spectrum, it's likely that he turns his emotions way down, not completely off, just way, 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 way down, because he views emotions as getting in the way of completing tasks. He views emotions as messy and unnecessary. A quick message to neurodiverse couples out there struggling in their marriage. If you have a problem that keeps repeating itself over and over and over again, never gets resolved, it's been going on for years. The reason it's repeating itself is because there's a lesson in there somewhere and you haven't gotten it yet. So this problem that keeps repeating itself is a lesson that keeps repeating itself because it's waiting for you to learn from it and grow from it. So if you have an issue, not that there's just one, but if you have one that never has been resolved, it keeps showing up over and over and over again, ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this? How am I supposed to grow from this? Because that problem is going to keep repeating itself. In other words, that lesson is going to keep showing up until you get it. So what are you supposed to learn? And then when you figure out what it is that you're supposed to learn it and grow from it, then the problem will go away. Quick message to neurotypical spouses out there. If you are trying to get your autistic husband to cooperate with you, you need to understand that he is underly emotional and overly logical. And so if you're going to try to get him to get it by appealing to his emotions, that's going to be a strikeout. But he's highly logical, and so you would want to appeal to his logic. How do I do that, Mark? Research the facts, present the facts, and make sure you can back them up with evidence. Hey, quick message to neurodiverse couples. Stop shooting one another. I said, stop shooting one another. Well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, you should have done that. Well, you shouldn't do this. Well, you should do this. You should. Just stop shooting all over the place, okay? That's just a bunch of bullshit. Hey, quick message to neurodiverse couples out there. Did you know that whatever you accuse your spouse of doing, you're doing it yourself in that moment? For example, oh, you're being so defensive. Well, that's you defending against their defensiveness. Or, well, you're so critical. Well, you're being critical of the fact that they're being critical. Or, you're so judgmental. Okay, well, you're judging them as being somebody who's judgmental. Or, wow, you're so controlling. Well, you're trying to control the fact that they're controlling. Or how about this one? You're so insensitive, narcissistic, sociopathic, uncaring, selfish, and you have no empathy. Well, you just displayed no empathy there. Okay, we're going to look at some blind spots associated with ASD. Number one, social cues. This is difficulty in interpreting nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. Second blind spot would be emotional recognition. This would be challenges in understanding and recognizing the emotions of others, which can lead to misunderstandings in social situations. The third blind spot would be perspective taking, and this is struggling to see things from another person's point of view, which can affect empathy and social interactions. Number four would be change and flexibility. This would be sensitivity to changes in routine or environment, which might lead to anxiety or discomfort in new situations. A fifth blind spot would be sensory processing. This is over or under sensitivity to sensory inputs, such as sounds, lights, textures, and so on, that can be overwhelming or lead to misinterpretations. Number six would be social norms. This would be difficulty grasping unwritten social rules or expectations, which can result in social faux pas. Number seven, understanding humor. This would be struggling with sarcasm, jokes, or figurative language, leading to misunderstandings in conversations. An eighth blind spot would be personal boundaries. This is challenges in recognizing social boundaries, which can result in inappropriate behavior or invasion of personal space. The ninth blind spot is initiating and maintaining conversations. This would be difficulty in starting or keeping a conversation going, which can lead to social isolation. And the 10th and final blind spot that I'm going to talk about is perseveration on topics. This would be the tendency to focus on specific interests to the exclusion of other subjects, which can hinder broader social interactions. Now, this list highlights some common blind spots that individuals with autism may experience, though it's important to remember that each person's experience is unique. And I'm not calling these people dumb. General IQ-wise and logical IQ-wise, they're probably smarter than me. Hey guys, quick message to autistic husbands out there. One of the most important things you can do for your neurotypical wife is to do something that she's interested in, even though you're not necessarily interested in it. So my mantra is, even though I may not have any interest in a particular activity that my wife wants, if it's important to her, therefore it's important to me. I would like for you to consider adopting and acting on this mantra. If it's important to her, therefore it's important to me. Okay? Let's say she wanted to go for a little weekend getaway, just one night. She's tired of working, she's tired of dealing with the kids, just a little one-night getaway. Would you have any interest in doing that directly? Probably not. Would you ever do that by yourself? Probably not. But it's important to her, therefore it's important to you. That's the mantra, right? I'm not going to derive any personal satisfaction from this trip, but the fact that she's deriving some satisfaction brings me satisfaction. Quick message to neurotypical spouses out there. When you connect with your children and other family members and friends, you get a social reward in the form of feel-good chemicals in your brain, specifically dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, oxytocin, and so on. With your ASD husband, he does not get much of a social reward for connecting, especially if there's a lot of noise and a bunch of people and he has to force himself to socialize for extended periods of time. He doesn't get that dopamine hit like you do. In fact, he gets a cortisol and adrenaline hit. In other words, it's an anxiety producer for him to connect with people that he doesn't really want to connect with, especially for extended periods of time. So in summary, you get a huge social reward in the form of feel-good brain chemicals when you socialize and connect. He gets a huge stress response in the form of fight or flight chemicals when he tries to connect sometimes. Message to people on the autism spectrum. Did you know that processed food makes people have autistic-like symptoms? Yeah, don't take my word for it. Google it. So if you have autism, you can't afford to have more autistic-like symptoms. You're already in a one-down position. So if you're still stuck in childhood eating cheeseburgers and from McDonald's and chicken nuggets from Burger King or wherever, haven't helped you. You should avoid processed food like you would avoid nuclear waste. Okay, so here's the top 10 list of behavioral manifestations commonly associated with alexithymia, also called emotions blindness. Number 1, difficulty identifying emotions. That would be trouble recognizing and labeling one's own feelings, often leading to a general sense of confusion about emotional experiences. Number 2, limited emotional expression. That is a tendency to display few emotions or express them in a muted manner, making it hard for others to discern feelings. Number 3 would be struggling to describe emotions. This would be challenges in verbalizing emotional experiences, often leading to vague or non-specific language when discussing feelings. Number 4 would be focus on physical symptoms. That would be a tendency to express distress through physical complaints rather than the emotional ones, often reporting headaches, stomach aches, or other bodily symptoms, for example. Number 5, avoidance of emotional situations. This would be an inclination to steer clear of situations that may evoke emotional responses, such as deep conversations or emotionally charged activities. And number 6 would be difficulty empathizing. This would include challenges in understanding the emotions of others and responding appropriately, which can lead to social misunderstandings. And number 7 would be concrete thinking. This is a preference for logical and factual reasoning over abstract thinking, often disregarding the emotional aspects of situations. Number 8 would be interpersonal difficulties. These are struggles in forming and maintaining close relationships due to difficulty in emotional communication and connection. Number 9 is anxiety or depression. This is an increased vulnerability to anxiety or depressive symptoms,
often stemming from unresolved emotional issues. And lastly, we have rigid coping mechanisms. This would be reliance on specific behavioral strategies, such as denial or avoidance, to cope with overwhelming situations that have emotional undercurrents. Now, these manifestations can vary in intensity and may not all be present in every individual with alexithymia. You know, we actually have 7 senses. Of course, there's sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. But there's also proprioception, which helps you keep your balance. And then there's emotions. So you actually have 7 senses, emotions being one of your 7 senses. So if you have a spouse with ASD, he's going to have some level of emotions blindness, also called alexithymia. So which means he's not going to be able to see or understand emotions very well. So my question is, if you have an ASD spouse who has difficulty seeing and understanding emotions, why would you take that more personally than if he or she didn't see very well or had a hearing problem? Hey, a little word of advice to the neurodiverse couples out there where one person is autistic and the other one is not. I would strongly recommend against going to a therapist where you're going to get neurotypical advice. You know, love languages and I feel statements and so on like that. Your therapist, doesn't matter whether he's autistic or not, if he's offering neurotypical advice, he or she is not factoring in mind blindness, emotions blindness, executive function deficits, anxiety, sensory sensitivities, weak central coherence, problems with prediction, theory of mind deficits. And so you're going to get advice that is not going to work, but it's worse than that. You get advice that makes a bad problem worse. Okay? You've been duly warned. If you're married to someone on the autism spectrum, you're married to somebody who is very task-oriented, not so much emotions-oriented. So if you need him to do something, instead of trying to appeal to his emotions, you want to appeal to his natural task orientation skills. For example, if you say, well, I feel this way about such and such, and you expect him to know what he's supposed to do task-wise based on how you feel, no, not going to work. Not going to work. So instead, just appeal to his skill in the area of task orientation. In other words, I need you to complete this, or it would be helpful if you would do that, or I need such and such. So just tell him what you need. Just point blank. Just be perfectly blunt, right out there. Don't talk about emotions and don't try to reason with him or appeal to his feelings and empathy and so on. Just tell him what you need. A quick message to husbands on the autism spectrum. If you've been in a troubled neurodiverse marriage for a long time, lots of conflict, argument, misunderstandings, confusion, and your NT wife feels emotionally deprived, the number one thing that's going on with her, absolute number one thing, she doesn't feel safe in the marriage. She doesn't feel safe. She doesn't feel like she's getting her emotional needs met. And that feels very, very risky to her. She's very insecure based on not getting the emotional needs met. So in the event that you would want to do a huge turnaround in your neurodiverse marriage, ask yourself the question, what can I do or say today to help my wife feel safe? Because that is the number one problem. To rebuild trust, to rebuild the bond, to help her feel safe. The past is dead. The past is gone. It doesn't even exist anymore. But every time you think about the past, you relive the past. And every time you relive the past, you repeat the past in the present moment. So, how much longer are you willing to redo the past? Hey, this is Mark Hutten. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendar link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.